Hello, everyone. I'm Ethan Mott. Today, we're going to be talking about Ai Weiwei, contemporary artist and activist. So, this is Ai Weiwei. He's a Chinese artist and activist. He has explored basically every medium of art that exists, and he's most well known for his works that criticize authority structures around the world, particularly in China with the Chinese Communist Party, and also works that analyze the history and traditions of his home country, often contrasting China's past with its present. His political dissidence has gotten him in trouble with the CCP a good few times, but despite their censorship of him, he is still seen across the world as a guardian of free speech and expression. So let's talk about his life story a bit. So he was born in Beijing in 1957 during the leadership of Chairman Mao. His father was Ai Qing, a renowned Chinese poet. He was very popular with the Chinese Communist Party originally, but during the Cultural Revolution, he was seen as an enemy of the state and exiled to the west of China, near Xinjiang. And so the family wasn't able to return back to Beijing until 1976 when Chairman Mao died. And so after returning back to Beijing, Ai Weiwei was able to enroll in the Beijing Film Academy, where he studied animation. This is also where he began his art journey by joining an art collective known as the Stars, is this group of like-minded young Chinese artists. In 1981, he moved to the United States, eventually settling down in New York City. Here, he briefly studied at the Parsons School of Design, briefly as in like less than a year, I believe. And here he was exposed to several avant-garde artists and their work, such as Marcel Duchamp. He also produced several artworks of his own that never really gained much attention, but he took many photographs of the city that have become famous. Photography for him was mostly a hobby. It wasn't really designed as art. You can see in the bottom left here is a photo of just him chilling in New York City. But he captured many pretty striking images of civil unrest. Up top here we have a scene from the Tompkins Square Park riot in 1988, where several people gathered to protest gentrification and the homelessness problem in Manhattan. And then down here we have a scene from a protest against the government's lack of a response to the AIDS crisis. After his art career didn't really go anywhere in the US, he returned to Beijing in 1993 when his father became ill, and there he helped establish the Beijing East Village, this housing place for a bunch of different avant-garde artists in China. And he also collaborated on 3 books promoting Chinese avant-garde art. Also during this period, he delved into the medium of architecture. He founded his own design firm called Fake, and he helped design the Beijing National Stadium. By that, he was the artistic consultant, they say. I don't really know what that means, but he has since, this is where the 2008 Olympics were held, partially, and he has since disavowed his work in this building. But anyway, much of his art from this period juxtaposes China's past with its present, generally analyzing how the China of today isn't doing enough to respect its past and remember its past, and it's just moving forward into the future. This artwork right here, this a Han Dynasty pot that he's painted over with a Coca-Cola logo, is representative of that. The juxtaposition between this ancient artifact that has been besmirched with this modern logo. In a similar vein to that, we have this very famous series of photos called Dropping a Han Dynasty Urn, in which he drops a Han Dynasty urn. It's a very good title. So this is a genuine Han Dynasty urn from thousands of years ago that he just smashed. In fact, he smashed 2, because back then with film photography, you couldn't instantly see the result of a photograph after you take it. So he did 2 takes to make sure he got it right. So the meaning behind this piece is that it's supposed to provoke like anger and resentment for him destroying this priceless ancient artifact. While the his message with it is that why are you getting mad at him for doing this when the Chinese government, over the course of its history, has destroyed so much ancient Chinese heritage in this for the sake of forward progress, just erasing its own past and not respecting it. Isn't that cool? Anyway, later in his career, he took a more actively political stance in his art and in his life in general. He began posting criticism of the CCP on Weibo in 2005, later transitioning to Twitter after his Weibo account was banned. Much of his criticism of the Chinese Communist Party revolved around their suppression of free speech. But also, his criticism came to a head after the 2008 Sichuan earthquake, an event where shoddy school construction led to the deaths of thousands of children who were crushed under falling buildings. And after the government failed to be transparent about the death toll, the government often covered up investigations into how many people died, tried to cover up the story. He initiated a citizens investigation into the fates of all the victims. This is him in front of this wall with all these different names of children who he discovered who died in the earthquakes. And this piece here, titled Straight, is comprised of pieces of rebar from the wreckages of the destroyed buildings that have been painstakingly straightened out by hand to show the devastation that occurred. Following along with the Sichuan earthquake, we have this piece called Remembering, this large mural made up of thousands of children's backpacks in various colors. It spells out a phrase in Chinese, which is a quote from one of the victims' mothers, and it reads, "She lived happily for 7 years in this world." It's very sad. Another interesting fact about this piece is that it was placed in front of a art museum in Germany called the Haus der Kunst, which was commissioned by the Nazis before World War II as a place to display propaganda art. And so it's a nod to him comparing the modern China to a similarly like oppressive regime. In this piece, there's a lot to say about this one, sunflower seeds. Uh, this work comprises 100 million of these small porcelain sunflower seeds, all handmade using traditional porcelain making techniques in a small village in China. All the materials are mined by hand, and then the seeds assembled and molded and painted and shipped here into the Tate Modern Museum in the United Kingdom. So in terms of the symbolism at play here, there are many different layers going on. One of which is how the production method for these seeds contrasts modern Chinese mass production with ancient Chinese hand-making production. Again, with that theme of past versus present. But another dimension is how sunflowers relate to Mao Zedong, since a lot of propaganda art during Mao's regime depicted his followers as sunflowers facing him as the sun. And in a more sinister relation to Mao, many people who were faced with the Great Chinese Famine, which was caused by Mao's Great Leap Forward, had to survive off of only sunflower seeds as sustenance. So yeah, this is a very complex art piece with a lot going on. Another interesting fact about it, if any of you took AP art history in high school, you'll have learned about this piece. I did take that class with my partner Avalon, and at the end of the year, our teacher gave all of us 3 seeds from this art piece because at the end of the exhibition they gave away all these seeds. I think they sold them, and my teacher ended up with a bunch of them, and they gave them to us. So this is my partner's 3 little sunflower seeds. I don't know where mine are, so that's why this isn't my picture. But I think it's pretty cool. Have a little piece of history. So after Ai Weiwei got pretty vocal about his criticism of the government, it didn't take very long for the government to fight back. In 2010, they demolished a studio he had just built in Shanghai. This picture in the bottom right is him amongst all the rubble. The government claimed that it was because he hadn't got the proper permits to construct the building, but I claimed that it was an act of persecution, that he had done everything properly. In 2011, he was arrested on charges of economic crimes, stuff like tax evasion, that the international community largely saw as just an attempt to silence him, with no real backing behind it. During his time in jail, he experienced constant surveillance and harsh conditions, and was released after almost 3 months, and then, on top of that, charged with a huge tax bill of 15 million yuan. And on top of all of that, from 2010 to 2015, he did not have a passport. The government revoked his passport, so he could not leave the country. So, in 2015, when he got his passport back, he got out of there as quick as possible, and then ended up moving into Berlin, Germany, then to the United Kingdom and Portugal. Now, since he's left the country, he has broadened his subject matter to be more global issues, such as the refugee crisis and the COVID-19 pandemic. And to this day, he is a very vocal political activist online and in his art. In the bottom left here, you have him visiting a refugee camp on the border of Greece and Macedonia. A bunch of his experiences seeing refugees firsthand have inspired his art pieces, such as this, which is a assemblage of refugee life vests placed upon the concert house in Berlin. And the two more major pieces of art that he's released since he's left China is these two documentaries, Human Flow and Coronation. Human Flow is about the refugee crisis. It shows scenes from all across the world of refugees fleeing their home countries and trying to assimilate into new places. And then this film, Coronation, is about the COVID-19 pandemic and the Chinese government's response to it. In conclusion, Ai Weiwei's art is provocative, it is symbolic, it is irreverent, and it is striking. But most importantly, it is thought-provoking. He challenges us to remember the importance of our past, question the authorities of our present, and build towards a free and prosperous future. Now, thank you guys for watching. And if you care about my references, here they are. Okay, have a good day.